Yeah.
Okay.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. I am so happy to be here tonight. Let me tell you, I've got an awesome guest, Carol D. Levine, and she is here with us tonight. She's going to be on. We're here for an hour and a half, so I hope everybody can sit back, grab a cold drink, and kick back and listen to Carol. You know, she's an awesome, amazing lady. She's got a great story to tell. She's an author. She's written a book, her own personal memoirs, called Panic Child, a harrowing true story of sexual abuse and neglect. And I read the book. It's just awesome, and it's heartbreaking, it's touching, but what the book really represents to me is a woman of strength, of courage, and you know, Carol has had to overcome many things, many obstacles, like so many of us survivors have. And so it's just amazing to see what she's done with her life and how she overcame, how she became, you know, a strong person, a woman who with confidence, who could reach out then and help others, right? And so it's just an amazing thing to have Carol here with us, and I'm really pleased and honored and humbled, and you're just a really nice lady. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Lori. How you doing? And everyone out there, I say hi to you too. I'm really so happy to be on this program tonight and talk about my life and this epidemic, this sexual abuse epidemic that plagues our society. You know, I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, kidnapping, and rape. And you know, one of my goals is to help create more public awareness of how being a victim of sexual abuse affects you for the rest of your life. People just don't seem to understand this. They don't get it. And I want them to start understanding. And all of us survivors need to get out there and really, you know, start talking about it. I am one of approximately 39 million survivors in America. Although our stories may differ, we all have horrific stories to tell. One thing we do have in common, of course, is abuse, which alters our lives forever, especially if you get no help. Okay, that's very important for a child. A child isn't equipped mentally; they just simply aren't to suffer like that, and they don't know what to do with it emotionally, physically, mentally, and all kinds of problems happen to children who are sexually abused. They so need help. It helps bring peace to my heart and soul to know that I'm helping others who have been abused. By telling my story, many abused people can identify, of course, and it helps to know that you're not alone. To those who have never been abused, you can learn from people like me and hopefully become someone's hero, someone who desperately needs your help. I always knew that I was going to write a book. I just didn't know when. I was watching a late-night talk show, and the topic of discussion was about a judge who sentenced the rapist to probation. No jail time for that guy. And I became furious and decided right then and there to write my story. Any judge who allows for our citizens to walk around in fear because they have not done their job should be asked to step down. They should be made to step down. I mean, you know, isn't the punishment supposed to, you know, fit the crime?
Absolutely.
And this is something that we have to look into. Call your Congress people. Get a hold of the governor. I've gotten a hold of mine. I've let them know exactly how I feel about this. And first-time offenders, remember, they may have been caught once, but that doesn't mean they have one victim.
Oh, that's right.
And the sentencing for that should be a lot stiffer, and certainly not just probation, okay?
No.
I came from a very dysfunctional home. My alcoholic biological father used to beat my mother, which I witnessed many times. I would sneak down the steps because she'd be screaming, and I wanted to see what was happening to my mother. My brother, who was almost 5 years my senior, always stayed in his room, but he had been hit by my father, and I could understand why he was so frightened. I was frightened too. I never knew if he was going to turn on me or not, you know.
Right. That's right.
You just don't know with things like this. And my mother was hit so many times. You know, I walked into a door. I fell down the steps. How many black and blue marks can you have? You know, it doesn't even make sense. You know,
how many times can you walk in that wall or that door or fall down those steps?
Yeah, I know.
It's the same with
it's
children.
Heartbreaking. And you know, as a child, I was only 5 years old when I saw that, but I remember it to this day like it was yesterday. I remember her crouching over in the corner on this one last night that she was going to take his abuse, and she was crouched in the corner of the kitchen. I could see all this from the hallway, and he had this heavy black skillet frying pan in his hand, and he was going to hit her, and he said, "I'm going to kill you. I will just simply kill you." And he'd always said that, but I didn't quite know what kill meant because I was only 5 years old.
Right.
So I asked my older, smarter brother what that meant, and he hit a fly, and he said, "Well, now the fly's dead, isn't it?" Well, that's what it means. So I knew that that's what he meant for my mother. I'm going to kill you. So I stood in that hallway, and I yelled, "No, Daddy, no, don't do that. Don't do that, Daddy, no, no." And then he spun around, and he came after me, and I didn't know what he was going to do to me. I was frozen with fear. I couldn't move. I just stood there, And I remember I started to shake, and my heart felt like it was going to jump out of my chest, And he pinned me against the wall, and the wall wasn't level, and I could feel my back, all the bones in my back. It felt like they were going to break or something. And I had bruises all over my arms the next day because he had held me so tightly. And then he went to the front door, and he slammed the door so hard that the glass panel fell to the floor and smashed. That's how hard he smashed. Yeah.
Oh, scary.
Frightening for a 5-year-old to watch it. Well, for anyone to watch it, but for a 5-year-old. And my brother was up in his room, like I said. He didn't want any part of that. So anyway, I went into the kitchen to my mother, and she had gotten up off the floor, and she was shaking, and she was a mess. And she taught me how to use the telephone. And she said, "Next time Daddy gets like that, if there is a next time," I didn't know what she meant by that, dial 0, and that'll get you to the operator and say, "Police, police." And then, the police will come and put Daddy in jail. So I said, "What's jail? I don't know what jail is."
Right,
so
you're only 5 years old.
What? So I decided, well, I'll have to go ask my smart, intelligent brother what that is, too, So he explained to me that's where bad people go when they do bad things. The next day, my mother had decided that she was going to leave my father. And you know something? Even though I was only 5 years old, I didn't care. Because this man petrified me. And when he was so angry, his face would become twisted. I used to watch him so often. He was a very angry alcoholic person. And he was in many bar fights, and you just never knew what to expect. Okay. So, but the sad part was my brother went to the grandparents on my mother's side, and they absolutely adored him, and he had very good treatment, which I'm glad he did. And I was put with an aunt and uncle that I didn't really know that well. And it turns out that my uncle was a child molester. Now, my mother separated us because she wanted to save for her divorce. And she claimed that she couldn't keep her children and work and all this other stuff. So that's why my brother was in one place and I was in another. My mother and I were never close, Lori. She was not the type of parent that ever hugged you or held you or praised you well, I just knew she didn't like me that much, But I didn't want to see her get killed, okay?
Well, no.
She was my mother,
That's right,
so, Yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, I never told my mother that I was being sexually abused. She'd come to see me once a week, if that, if I was lucky. And this aunt that I was living with didn't feed me right. I was only allowed one portion of everything. It was like a tablespoon of this, a tablespoon of that. And you were not allowed to talk at the table. No one could speak at the table.
Very strict.
Oh,
yeah.
And, they wouldn't even speak to each other, my aunt and uncle. It was silence.
It's very closed environment, yeah.
A very strange environment.
No communication.
And then on Friday nights, my uncle was Catholic. I'm Catholic, too, but he was Catholic. And he didn't like fish, so he would eat a big bowl, a huge bowl of ice cream in front of me, and I wasn't allowed to have any. Until a little kid, hey, that's not a very good deal. No, I was really mad. Yeah. So, anyway, he would sneak into my room in the morning, and I wasn't able to sleep anymore because he had come into my room and he molested me. He got into my bed, and he started to feel me all over. I didn't know what he was going to do, and then as time went by, he wanted me to do things to him, and that's how I lived. I mean, I couldn't sleep at night. I developed terrible bags under my eyes because of lack of sleep. And I got skinnier and skinnier, and my hair started to fall out. And, you know, because I wasn't being properly nourished. And No. And, you know, I got so hungry that some nights I couldn't sleep just from my stomach growling, you know. So I would sneak downstairs. I'd hear them in there snoring, so I knew they were asleep. And I would go downstairs, and they had a beautiful German Shepherd. And they had dog bones. So at times, if I was too hungry, I would grab a dog bone, one for the dog and one for me. And they didn't seem to care about the Coke. We had lots of bottles of Coke. And he thought she drank a lot. He thought she drank a lot. And so I could sneak a bottle of Coke, but I could never, ever touch the food. I was told that I would get hit if I touched the food. Okay. Then there were no snacks. Yeah, and there were no snacks in that house. So I would sit down with the dog, and that I loved, and we would each eat our dog bone. God mercy. And trust me, everyone out there who's listening, dog bones taste like mud pies. When you're a little tiny kid and you make mud pies and you stick your finger in it and you taste it. Dog, I don't know why dogs like them, but that's what they taste like, and then they have sort of like a little aftertaste. But it took care of the growling in my stomach.
The hunger pains, The
hunger pains. You know, to drink the soda and to eat the dog bone. And then I would sneak back upstairs and get back into bed, not knowing if he was going to come into the room that next morning, that same morning, you know. This would happen about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd sneak down to get a dog bone, you know, because I couldn't sleep. All right.
Right.
So they never allowed for me to have a light in my room, whereas when I lived with my mother and father, the door was always open a crack and there was always a light. And so I felt really very frightened, and I felt abandoned by my mother, and of course I was by my father. He was going back and forth to California. I never knew if he was going to stay there, if he was going to come here. And who cared anyway? Look how he behaved, right? So anyway, I had a terrible, terrible time there, but I did manage to make one friend who lived a few blocks away, and she was a good source of sanity during that time for me because she was a good friend, you know, and I would play with her after school, and there was a glen there. There was a glen. They called it a glen in those days. It was a stream, I guess. And in the summertime, that'd be fine because I'd go in and I'd sort of like get a bath, wouldn't I?
Right.
Because I wasn't allowed to bathe in that house but once a week. And when you're a little kid, once a week is not good enough. Oh, no, even if you're an adult, that's not good enough. So none of my needs were taken care of by my aunt. I wasn't fed properly. I wasn't bathed right. My clothing was wrinkled. When I was going to school during the school year, the kids were making fun of me. They called me greaseball. They called me all other kinds of names. All these things. The kids were just as bullyish back then as they are today.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me. And I saw just as many fights back then as that you see today, and kids were just as volatile. It depended also, too, on where you lived. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And, So anyway, my mother would come on Saturdays usually, but not every Saturday. And she'd ask me what I wanted to do. The first thing I said would be the diner. Let's go to the diner.
Get some food.
You bet. And when I walked into the diner, they'd say, hey, here comes spaghetti and meatballs, because that's my favorite food of all. And, you know, I'd sit down, oh, you bet. And I would sit down and I'd eat my spaghetti and meatballs, and then I'd order a sundae on top of that. And by the time I got back to the House of Horrors, because that's what I called it, because it was truly the House of Horrors, I would throw up. My stomach was so shrunken.
And just nervous
that's what
tension.
And
and just starving. You're basically starving.
I was half starved. I do have a picture of myself that way. It's disgusting. I have a hard time looking at that picture. I really do.
Right. It would be very painful.
No, that's painful.
To see, you know.
To write my book was okay, but to look at that picture was painful. Okay. So my mother would just get mad, angry at me. What was wrong with her? Why couldn't she see that I was skin and bones and dirty and all this other stuff? What was wrong with her? I couldn't understand this. And I would keep saying, Mommy, when am I going to get out of this house? I'm not happy. And she said, don't ask anymore. When it happens, it happens. And I'm the type of kid, though, that I was the type of kid that I was a pretty rough kid even back then. And even with all the things that I saw and with all the things that I went through, I knew that I was going to tell on this uncle. And he told me, I will kill you if you tell on me. I will kill you.
Yeah.
And, I had a gut instinct. He meant it. And he did mean it, Lori. And in my book, it shows you how that came to be. You know, I met him later on. And that man meant business. And I'm not going to go into that now, okay? But he meant business. He would have killed me. Yeah, absolutely, because I did tell on him. And I was like gauging my time. What can I tell? How long does it take to get a divorce? How long do I have to stay here? I'm thinking to myself.
All these things running through your mind, right, as these years go by, right? Because you were in that home for quite a few years. Like you were there.
No. I was there for about a year and a half almost.
Oh, okay. So about 2.
And, but to me it seemed like 10 years. Okay.
Yeah,
but it was close to a year and a half. But I knew that I was going to tell on him, and finally the day came where I could not take it anymore, and it was on the 4th of July, and they did have a big party, and an aunt of mine that I really, really liked came to visit, and my grandmother from my father's side came too, and there was a lot of people there, and people were, having some beers and stuff, and they left, and we were having a good time. And my good aunt took me upstairs, and she put me to bed because my other aunt and uncle had passed out, actually. And it all just poured out of me. I told her what was going on. And, somehow she was not surprised. And she had a drinking problem, too. I came from a family where whether they were blood related or whether they weren't blood related, there was a lot of drinking going on. But I trusted her. She was smart. She would look at me when she'd come to visit, and she knew there was something wrong. And I remember I would flush so. I would really blush because I just knew that she knew that something was wrong, but the time wasn't right. Where I don't want to go to a home. My uncle, the bad one, used to tell me, you're going to go to a home. If you tell, you have no place to go. You're a little girl that has no home. So you can't tell because they'll just put you in a home. And he described the home to me, what it would be like, with a bunch of other little kids who had no mommies and daddies, and it was just too frightening. So
using threats and you bet, manipulation and everything else.
It was awful, Lori, and I fell far behind in school. I couldn't concentrate. How could I concentrate, for God's sake? I didn't even like school. And then with the kids bullying and everything, I didn't want to part of school anyway. So, finally after I told, she stayed to her word. She told my mother. She's the one that told my mother. And my mother came and picked me up, and she said, why didn't you tell me? And I couldn't answer her because I didn't feel close to her. I was actually afraid of my mother, too. Okay?
Yeah.
Because there was no bonding there.
Right.
Okay.
And you had just been sort of rejected anyway by not being allowed to stay with your brother at your grandparents. You were put in this other home where you didn't really know these aunt and uncle, and you probably felt a bit rejected, and
terribly.
That she really wasn't really interested in your well-being because she would see you'd be skinny and starving, and I can totally relate. I can see why. You know what I mean? You didn't tell her. It wouldn't have been because you didn't have that closeness, that bond. Yeah.
No, there was no closeness there. And unfortunately, Lori, it never changed throughout my whole entire life. I looked like my father's side of the family, and it's really quite ignorant because the elders should not take out on a child because they look like the other side of the family. It doesn't make sense.
That's right. That's right. And, it does happen.
Stupid. It does
but
happen too often.
It's not right. Yeah.
No, it's not right. So I was moved to another aunt and uncle who were very nice people. And if my cousins are listening out there, and I hope you are, hello, they didn't need me there.
Hello.
Though, because, yeah.
I hope they are too.
They're in the book. That's Katie and Donna. But anyway, and Karen, who has passed away. But anyway, the point is, they were very nice people, and that's why you think I was separated, yes, from my mother for quite some time, but I was in two different homes. I was in two different houses. The second house where I was in, they had three children of their own. They certainly didn't need me because another mouth to feed, and the house was so tiny. You know, it was a very tiny house. But they willingly took me in, and they were very good to me. And I actually started to gain back some of my lost weight that I so much needed. You know. And then one day my mother came and she said, guess what? You have a new daddy. I said, what? What's a new daddy? I know what the other daddy was like. What's a new daddy going to be like?
Yeah.
So, you know.
No kidding.
I didn't know if I was happy or not. In fact, I went and I, sat by myself for a while. I didn't know what to think of that. And we did move, my brother and I and my mother, and we moved out to Staten Island with our new stepdaddy, and who was a very kind person in many ways, but he knew nothing about kids at that time. And he didn't desire to be a parent to myself or to my brother. We never spoke. We never spoke. If he and I were at the same table together, he'd get up and leave.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it was, you know. And so then my grandparents moved in, and on my mother's side, and they had lost their home, or they were going to, and they ended up, moving with us, at another time. We moved out of Staten Island, and by the way, in Staten Island, I was kidnapped and raped. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was horrifying too. I mean, my father decided that he was going to come back from California and exercise his visitation rights. And it wasn't because he wanted to see us; he just wanted to be a bully. And so before he moved out of Staten Island, what he did was he came on maybe 4 or 5 times, and it was always very late. And I went down to the edge of the road too far. And let me tell you something: it only takes 30 seconds to kidnap a child. That's it.
Yeah.
Parents out there listening, listen to what I say.
Oh, I know it.
A car had pulled up. I was looking down the road to see if my father was coming. Where are you? And this blue car had pulled up, and I didn't know the person, but he had his windows rolled down. And by the way, most kids are kidnapped or abducted during the months of April through November. And this was October, so that's right in line. Okay. And it was a warm October day. And but he was mumbling, and I couldn't hear what he was saying. I kept drawing me closer and closer to the car. It didn't take me long to do that, and he just pulled me in. And he took me around. Yeah, he took me around the island, and he did his dirty deed. Okay, and it was brutal, and he hurt me horribly. And he was caught later on. I gave the police a very good description of him. I've been through so much already.
I know.
Yeah, I knew that the dashboard said Plymouth. I knew that the car was light blue. I knew that the seat covers were plaid, which were ugly, and it matched his shirt, which was ugly, but they matched. And I knew that he was skinny, and I knew that he wore this diamond ring that was outrageous on his pinky. It was outrageous. And, I had a lot to give to the police. And I was able to do that. Yeah. But what kid would think about getting a license plate number? Forget about it. By the time he took me back, I didn't know if he was going to kill me or not. Who would know?
Oh, yeah. That's right. Talk about
and this is one frightened kid here, and
wounded.
And oh, my Lord. I mean, my stomach hurt everywhere. I was just wounded. Yes, I was wounded. And I remember walking the long driveway back down because where I lived, the house was in the middle, and there was a road at one end and a road at the other end. One was Victory Boulevard, and the other end was Steins Road. And this man had been stalking me at school.
Oh, man. See, that's so scary.
So he had followed the bus home. It was a city bus. I lived in New York. It was a city bus. And he knew that, he went through the property, and he knew that if he picked me up at one end, he could drop me off at the other end, and I'd get back into the house, see? He wasn't a murderer, but he knew, that he was a rapist.
Wow.
And I was one of 14, 15 little girls that I was never given specific details, but I remember standing in the courtroom when he had gotten caught, and because I'd given such a good description of the car and of the man, a teenage boy saw him pull a little girl into the car just like he had done with me, and he did get the license plate number. And that's how they caught him.
That's awesome.
Yes, and I would love if he was around. I'd give him a big kiss. Thank you so much, whoever you are. But anyway, we had to go to court. All of us little girls, all we little girls who had gotten raped, and I was so frightened. I don't want to go to court and look at him. I didn't want to see
Yeah.
him ever again.
No.
But no.
Monster.
And he was a monster.
You bet.
I had a lot of monsters in my life. So
that's right.
I had too many monsters in my life. But, I was standing off in a corner, and I started to count heads. I was standing by a whole bunch of little girls, and that's why I can't quite tell you whether it was 14 or 15. It was too dark in that area. They were trying to keep us separate from the rest of the courtroom.
Oh, yeah.
So the people wouldn't, stare at us and so forth.
Make you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
already uncomfortable enough.
Oh, please. It was terrible.
Scary for a little kid. You bet. I mean, my God, to have to go through that, and then to have to go into the court proceedings,
Oh,
I mean,
Lord.
you want to talk about scary for a little kid. I mean, my God,
Well, they were taking me out during school. The police would come to the school and take me out in front of my peers to go downtown and look at mugshots.
Right.
And I felt like that I was the guilty one.
Right.
And they'd plop me up on their desk and give me a big donut, which I liked. That part was good. Give me a big glass of milk, okay. But take me out in front of my peers, no.
Right.
It just made me feel worse, okay. I felt dirty. I want people to realize how a victim feels, all right. A victim feels dirty. They feel different. They feel ugly. They feel stupid. They feel every bad feeling, low self-esteem that you can have.
Yeah. Damaged and
damaged and I mean it just icky, different. You're different, and you are different.
Mm-hmm.
You are different. And if you don't get help when you're a child, if like in those days, if someone was raped, they didn't take anyone to the hospital. Today, for God's sake, I want to get this very clear. If your child has been raped, don't change their clothing. Don't tell them to take a shower. Don't do anything. See, I did all that stuff because my mother told me to do it.
See, back in those days, But see, back in those days, they weren't thinking clearly about this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't have
DNA.
No, and no, but they didn't really even, as far as child abuse, child sexual predators, children being sexually abused, raped, and whatnot. It was all just, let's clean you up, and we'll just forget about it.
Right. That's what we're supposed to do.
You bet. Clean you up, put a Band-Aid on it, and then you don't talk about it again. You don't bring it up, and you don't mention it. We're going to forget it. We're going to put it. And what are you supposed to do with that? You know what I mean? Like,
you can't.
My God.
You can't. This is it's ridiculous. Today, there's all kinds of help out there. I'm so thankful for that. But what I am trying to get across to people, two things. All right. Number one, certainly don't take the children's, your child's clothing off. I don't care what they look like. I don't care what condition they're in. Don't wash them. Don't do anything different. Take them to the hospital. Call the ER ahead of time. Let them know that you're coming in, because they have people in there that are trained specialists, that deal with that, okay? And they'll be ready for you when you walk through the door. And they'll take care of your child, and they'll get counselors there and give you counseling and hook you up, if you will, with counselors, so you can get the counseling that you as a family need and the child certainly needs. Now that's one source right there, okay? That's number one, okay? That's very, very, very important for people. And another thing, get over this. Get over of being embarrassed. You're not the one that went out and did something wrong.
That's right.
You're the one.
It's not our fault.
No, it is not our fault, and you are not any less of a person because it happened to you. It means that someone has committed a terrible thing to you, a terrible crime, and that person, should be in jail. Now, if you don't tell, and I want everyone to listen to this really closely, because if you don't tell, number one, you don't get the help that you need, and number two, that person is free to go out and continue to abuse.
That's right.
And this is what we're trying so hard to stop, isn't it, Lori? We're trying to stop those people. And let's look at those people. A lot of those people, they're cowards. They prey upon children. They prey upon someone's out jogging by themselves, okay? And so they'll grab that person. I mean, or the elderly. That's their prey.
Anybody who's weaker, who they know that they can that they can take advantage of, that they can take control of, that they can, of course they're going to prey on children and the people that are, women by themselves.
Sure.
Young men. I mean, hey, men are raped too.
Oh, yes, they
right?
are.
And and young boys, right? I mean, boys and girls.
It's not just a girl thing.
That's right.
I learned that when I was looking at. I learned that when I was looking at mugshots in New York there, because they said, little boys get raped too, and boy was I shocked. I thought it was just little girls that had things like that happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it happens to boys too.
Yeah, that's right.
So and like with girls, we know that it's 1 out of 4 before the age of 18 they are going to get sexually abused, and with boys it's 1 out of 5 or 6. The stats change a little bit. They're tending to lean more to 1 out of 3 little girls, will be sexually abused before the age of 18, and of course boys about 5 or 6 before the age of 18. And of course this is ridiculous. It
is, and that's based on what's reported. So
that's right.
That's just based on what is actually reported.
Right.
There's so much of this that goes unreported. How about my case as well was not reported.
Right.
Right. And this is the issue. So how many children are being sexually abused, sexually assaulted, molested, exploited? It makes it just this. North America, we got to stand up, and we have to change this, because this is. People think this is not happening, but if you know a couple of people, then you know a survivor. Because there will be, one in 3 girls and one in like 5 or 6 boys. Yes, exactly. It's too many.
That's just outrageous.
One,
I just get mad when I hear that.
I do too.
To be violated like that and to have your life changed. Now, I was the type of kid that even though I was rough, excuse me, after I was raped, I did start to develop panic attacks. And, of course, I didn't know what they were. And I figured I was already crazy because I've been told that, so I didn't want to tell anyone that I was feeling, certain ways. And that's why I named my book Panic Child, okay? So I started to have panic attacks, terrible nightmares. Those never left, all right? I always had the terrible nightmares. And I started to be suicidal. At times I'd think about killing myself. There were times that I really would sit down and think about, just saying enough. I've gone through so much. And, of course, you have low self-esteem. There's all kinds of things that people need to understand, and social phobias are different. I wouldn't stand up in front of my peers. If I had to read a book report out loud, I'd run. Don't get me up there. No.
Yeah, you explained
I'd
that.
do something else. And
explained that quite well in your book.
Terrible. And then also, too, separation anxiety is a very big thing. I can give you an example of that. I'll go in the car and I'll drive, but I won't drive more than like 40 or 50 miles by myself. I just won't do it.
Yeah.
All right? Because I start to get panicky. I'm too far away from home. All right, that's like separation anxiety in a sense, and also if someone is gone too long, I worry about that person. If something happened to them, you go through all kinds of problems,
Right.
And
it's a lot of worry and anxiety and a feeling of doom, of something's wrong.
Right.
What if something's happened? It's always because
and embarrassment. People are always, like we're always terribly embarrassed. I mean, embarrassed easily, or we can be angry. We're prone to be angry, and then there are those people that have gone through the same things, Lori, like you and I both have. Okay, you have your story, and I have my story, and in some ways they're quite similar.
Yeah, there was a lot of similarities. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
In so many ways.
And people like us, they can do either one of two things. They can either learn from it and help other people and move on and not become, crazies, or they can, not be that way and hurt their own children. And it just doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And Lori, like when a person is, sexually abused, that doesn't give them the right to go out and sexually abuse someone else. It just simply doesn't.
That's right. No, that's right. That's exactly right. No, you're so right. And we can sit there and say, well, but this person was sexually abused because that's what happened in my case. You know what I mean? It was a family member, my brother, and I just know, I just feel it that he was sexually abused, and that's why he did that to me. And so, you know, it's people think, well, but they didn't know any better, or they couldn't help themselves. It's like, no, there's no excuse. There is no excuse. These people, this is the choice.
Right.
Abuse is the choice. Child, you know, when a child sexual predator or pedophile or anyone else, you know, abuses a child, they are making a choice.
Right. Exactly.
Abuse is a choice. They don't have to do that. No one has to sexually use a child. No one has to hurt a child. No one has to abuse a child in any way, you know, physically, verbally, emotionally, psychologically. It's a choice people make.
You're quite right.
Excuse for it whatsoever. You know?
You're quite right. I mean, life is about choices. And there's numbers out there. Whoever's listening, you know, if you are a person that is drawn to children, you know, you want to sexually abuse a child or anyone else, there are people out there that can help you. There are telephone numbers that are available right online, for God's sake. In fact, I think I even have one right here. I have some notes here for this.
There's all kinds of great information.
Yeah, no, this is good because they need to know, too, that they can get help. They can actually call 1-503-643-1023, and that organization will give you referrals for your area. Or you can go online and go www.atsa.com. And that, too, is another, what we got here, contact, or there's a /contact-HTML. Now, that's for abusers.
Right.
And abusers are sick people. I'm not saying these people are not sick, but we all know, Lori, we all know that it's morally wrong, and we all know that it's against the law, so shame on you.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
Go get
these
help.
People, yes, exactly. Go, you know, get the necessary help so that you don't, you know, injure and hurt or maim or possibly kill a child, and cause a child to have a lifetime, you know, of scars and you know, issues trying to get over this stuff. You know what I mean? It's incredibly sad that there are so many people that like to minimize abuse, and they like to minimize it. They like to make it out that it's okay, it doesn't hurt the child. There's a real, I don't know, sad and sick, twisted portion of our society here that thinks that child sexual abuse is no big deal, you know, and what's the big deal about it? And it's like, you know, you talk to survivors, and we'll tell you what the big deal is.
Well, I think we should all stand up and yell from treetops or something because, you know, people just don't get it. They just simply don't get it.
No, and it's what it is a form of denial, and what that does is shuts the survivor down. You know, survivors think, I couldn't get any help as a child, right? Now, as a survivor, you know, I've got a whole society telling me that I need to sit back and remain silent because they don't want to hear about it. And I got a whole other section of society saying, oh, but we've got to protect the child sexual predators and the pedophiles. They need protection. What about me? I needed protection. You needed protection. You needed protection from that rapist, that child sexual rapist that got a hold of you and could have killed you. Thank God he didn't. And you needed protection from your family member, your uncle, who was, you know, the molester, the sexual abuser. You know, like you needed protection. Where was your protection?
Absolutely did. I needed help because you know, I'll tell you what.
My God, you know.
Well, let me tell you something, Lori. These panic attacks lasted until, geez, I think I was in my 40s. Yeah. You know, and that actually held me back. Now, look, I have social service background. I do, because I belonged to a prayer group at one time, and they said, hey, Carol, you have such a background, you know, juvenile delinquent, because I was pretty rough. I started drinking when I was 16 years old because I could not cope with life. I couldn't cope with me. And when we moved from Staten Island to New Jersey, like I said earlier, my grandparents on my mother's side moved in, and they didn't like me, again, because I looked like the other side. I mean, how dumb. And My mother used to let me have, friends move in because she didn't want to talk to me. She didn't want to deal with me. And I don't know what the heck she thought she was dealing with, but, she didn't want to be a mother to me. She never did.
Yeah.
So in a way, it was
just
kind of cool.
There. Yeah.
Well, in a way, it was kind of cool because I had my friends in my house, but I knew why. Okay, I knew why.
Right.
And we were drinking, and unfortunately, some of my friends, I used to call us the Fab Five. We hung out in school together, and I started drinking in school because of my phobias, my social phobias. And, when I would do a book report out loud with a few belts in me, I'd get straight A's. I could write, but don't ask me to stand up in front of the class and read it out loud. I wasn't going to do that. But my other friends, unfortunately, some of them got into much, much heavier drugs, and then outside of the Fab Five, as I called us, I had other friends, and, of course, they passed away because they OD'd. And
that's sad.
Yeah. We used to sit in the graveyard. This just shows you what kids do. It's ridiculous. We would sit in the graveyard and drink by, a couple of graves where our friends were. I mean, I was hanging with a rough crowd of kids, and I was a rough person, but I think that helped me to survive.
Right. That's what I did, too. Yeah.
I believe that.
I needed that. At the time,
you have to feel better about yourself, And I needed a crutch. I needed a crutch, Lori, and that crutch for me was alcohol. So, okay, I met my first husband, and I thought he was Mr. Wonderful. He was handsome. Oh my God, he was a movie star, jet black hair and green eyes, and Harley Davidson. Oh, that was a lot of fun, and I still like Harley. and a light blue Cadillac. I thought I died, gone to heaven. He used to pull the chairs out for me in restaurants. He took me to Sardi's in New York, and he bought me clothing. I was working by that time. I had quit school at that point. I hated that school. I hated my phobias. I hated everything. And I got my education later on. It was okay. I didn't care, and my parents didn't care. She doesn't want to go to school. Don't let her go to school. Who cares? See, they didn't care. And it was a very dysfunctional school, which I write about in my book. I have a lot of funny things in my book because basically I'm a funny person, And so there are some funny things in that book, along with all the horror. Yeah, along with all the horror, there's some funny things in there too. Okay, so. But anyway, I got involved with the prayer group, and that's what saved me. Okay? Yeah. And they were my salvation. I mean, I loved my friends. We clung to each other. We helped each other, but they couldn't save me. I couldn't save them.
Right.
Okay. My husband had beaten me horribly for years. I had 2 beautiful children by him. I'm so proud of my children. They turned out great. I am so thankful for those children. And I have wonderful grandchildren. I mean, I'm really very blessed that way. But that prayer group is what got me involved with social services. And so I was part of the Raleigh Life Risk Program, Spirit Straight, the original one. And I did that for 2.5 years, and then I worked in detention center. That was a paid job. And then I worked in drug, clinics and things like that. I certainly knew enough about that. And on it went. And I also worked at Greystone Psychiatric because I wanted to see what a schizophrenic drug addict was like. It was like to teach me what they were like on drugs, or how they behave. Right. Because there's a lot of people like that out in society. A lot of our homeless people don't realize this. A lot of our homeless people are schizophrenic drug addicts. They just simply are.
Yep.
So I wanted to. It was more like an educational thing for me. And I stayed there for about a year, and then I left. I moved on to something else. But a lot of people were sexually abused. Okay. When I worked with the Raleigh Life Risk Program going back, a lot of those kids were sexually abused. And statistics, which we're going to get into, okay, it shows that children who are sexually abused are so much more apt to be juvenile delinquents. And have other kinds of problems, and even they turn that way, and they stay that way even as adults, that they don't get the proper help, and it's really a sad thing. So
it is. It's sad. It really
Anyone
is.
out there who thinks that sexual abuse is not a big deal, let me tell you something. People a lot of times only think about things that has to do with money. Think about all the money that is spent on people who need to go to psychologists and psychiatrists because they have been sexually abused.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of money out there being spent every year just on that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of dollars. I read that the other day, and I was shocked.
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
Sure, because we become like broken people, and we need help.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if a child is sexually abused one time. Okay, I'm not saying that one time is okay. It's never okay.
That's
but
right.
If you're abused time after time after time after time, the healing process is a lot harder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot longer.
That's right, and especially if there's other forms of abuse, like in your case, and even like my case, like where there was already some physical and emotional, psychological abuse going on, and neglect and serious neglect for you, and physical abuse more on my side, and there's already no support for that child, and then that child is sexually abused by somebody, and whether it's a family member or whether it's a stranger. In your case, it was both. I mean, my God, and you think about the it's so incredibly hard to come back from that, to try to gain some sort of a foundation from that, growing up like that, and then having to learn how to cope and developing these coping mechanisms that at the time probably saved life, or at least saved your sanity, but then as an adult are completely destructive and completely not good for your own self care. It's like it's incredibly hard, and I feel my heart goes out to every survivor, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, and of any type of abuse, right? But it's so harsh to know that so many children do slip through the cracks and do not get the help they need, and then now or later on as adults trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to cope? How am I going to get, can I really heal? Can I really take control and take my power back to have a good life, and help other people and help myself. It's so sad to see these people that like you're saying, that actually don't get the help and their lives are destroyed. It's discouraging. It's so sad because they've already suffered a life of hell, and then to see them destroy their lives or have their lives destroyed later, and never ever having the chance to heal and to learn how to cope, and it's very, very discouraging. And so it's awesome the work that you did there with and that you still kind of continue to do with the youth, and really, and also being such a proactive advocate, speaking out and contacting your the governors and contacting the people who need to be contacted to get these things done, to get laws changed, and to get things done. So it's awesome. I'm so glad that you survived and lived.
Well, I think that God has God, and thank you, Lori, and I could say the same for you because you had such a very, very hard life as well, And I mean, my mother took a switch to me a few times and drew blood and really walked over my legs. I know what it's like to be beaten, by a parent. Not nearly like what you went through. Oh my God! But my mostly the beatings with me was from my first husband, know, and that was it was horrifying. It was like watching Mommy in the kitchen all over again. Only I was Mommy. It was like, here you go, now I'm Mommy. And it was horrible. And I don't think my children saw that much. I'm so thankful they didn't. But my husband did try to kill me, and if he's listening, he'll tell you the same thing. And it was very close, and I was reaching around the stove, and we were in the kitchen, and I was reaching, another kitchen. I was reaching around the stove.
Kitchens are actually very dangerous.
I know.
They were in my life, too. So I know.
Kitchens, but I was reaching around the stove, and there was a knife there. It was a big one. And I thought to myself, it's either him or me, and I have 2 kids to think about. And if I was able to stab him, I would have. And because I was going down, I was going under, I was feeling myself slip away, and then all of a sudden something hit my hand really hard, and my father-in-law had stayed overnight. and he had a camper outside, and he had come in. He saw what was going on. Maybe he could hear. I don't know. But anyway, he knocked he knocked a knife out of my hand, and then he punched my husband in the nose, which he needed anyway. All right.
Right. Get him to stop doing that.
He told me to go upstairs, you know, and boy, did I go up, and I think I probably went through a pack of cigarettes. I was like, oh my God. But you know, that was very frightful. I mean, there's so much abuse. So how much can a person take? You know, it depends on the individual, number one, okay, and then also too, I didn't get the help what I needed. But again, the one thing that my ex-husband did for me, because there was a time that he became clean and sober, because he was an alcoholic too, right? Yeah. You know, he joined this prayer group, and during a short period of time, maybe about a year and a half, he was like pretty much okay, and I had gotten back with him. The book explains all of this, and but it didn't last, unfortunately, and but I very much was able to get a lot from this prayer group. It helped me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And because of that prayer group, that's why I'm sitting here. Okay, that was down in Red Bank, New Jersey. And
like a saving grace, yeah.
Yes, and thank you so much if you people are listening, because you saved this little girl here. Okay. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, but maybe you want to get into some kind of stats or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we can, and I think that we both have so much that we that we want to talk about here tonight. And but I really am so happy that you shared your book, and I'm so glad I got to read it. It's such an awesome book, and I'm just passing it on to everybody that I know. And it's a great story, and it's well written. It's just so, it's not just some sort of sad, tragic story. Even though there is a whole, your life has been full of all the different types of abuse. You have such a great way of presenting how much your friends really helped you out, and how much some of these other people that came into your life really made a difference and were like a hero to you. You know what I mean? Like a peer support and a hero, right? So I love your book, and I'm glad that you got to kind of go into it with us. It's awesome.
Well, thank you, Lori. I'm glad to have been able to tell that story, because I really want people to wake up. Wake up. If the statistics say there's 39 million survivors out there, well, that's an awful lot of sexual abuse. Come on, and it's time that we, as a society, it's time that we as a society start doing something about it, more than what we're doing. Wake up. And there's all kinds of things online here, like Darkness to Light. That's a very, very good site. And I'm going to say it again, Darkness to Light. They have all different sites on there that, offer an awful lot of information. And like I know on your site, too, it's very, very good. Yeah, that offers a lot of information as well. So there's things right there online that people can just go online and get all kinds of information from today. This is very, very good.
That's right. Yeah, like Darkness to Light has this, as well as I'm not sure where they originally got this from, but there is this information on Darkness to Light, as well as Dreamcatchers and other websites, that says by the time you finish reading this article, 5 to 6 children will have been abused, beaten, or raped. It says in 5 minutes, 30 more. Within the next hour, 360. And by tonight, close to 8,000 children will have suffered abuse, 5 of which will die. Child abuse has increased 134% since 1980. The high jump in child abuse and the shocking statistics highlights the frightening lack of public knowledge, and we must educate ourselves on child abuse and stop this cycle of abuse. It says, if you suspect child abuse, report it, protect our children. And, this is really shocking. And, the sad thing is that it's reality for these kids out here.
Yeah, it's reality. They have two people right here, 2 little kids right here that grew up to adults, and we're talking from our hearts. And people have to, just simply have to start listening. It says here, experts estimate that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused before their 18th birthdays. This means that in any classroom or neighborhood full of children, there are children who are silently bearing the burden of sexual abuse. That was you and me.
That's
exactly
you and
me.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then also, too, 1 in 5 children are sexually solicited while on the Internet.
Yeah.
And
boy, that's crazy.
And there's all kinds of sites online. I have something here that's called Internet Predators Online, and it's a very good site for parents. It's Protect Kids. That's PROTECT, capital KIDS.com. Now, that's a very good site right there. And then there's also another one. It's just called Surfing the Net with Kids, and that's by Barbara J. Feldman. And now these are two very good sites for parents to look at because, you know, there's perverts out there all over the place.
They are everywhere. Yep.
They go online.
They're everywhere.
And I forget what the statistics are. We'll probably run into it, of how many kids are actually online and do get solicited by these people who need help so badly. Okay. Yep. And, you know, that's just the way it is. The median age for reported sexual abuse is 9 years old. Approximately 20% of victims of sexual abuse are under the age of 8. Well, gee, that would be me, okay?
That's, I was right around that age,
Right. 50%
horrible.
of, I know, 50%, now listen to this, 50% of all victims of forcible sodomy, sexual assault with an object, and forcible fondling are under the age of 12.
Yeah, that's right.
Most
Absolutely
child
horrific.
victims, and most child victims never report the abuse. They never report it. You know, sexually abused children keep it secret or are told not to tell because they won't be believed, or their parents will get mad, or you know, or they'll get beaten.
Right.
There's all different kinds of reasons why, you know, they're told not to tell. Whether it's and another thing too, it's usually family members, isn't it?
A lot of it. A lot of it.
You know,
30 to 40%.
Now I have that right here. 30 to 40% of children are abused by family members. As many as 60% are abused by people the family trusts. Now that could be anyone. That could be a neighbor. It could be someone in the church.
Babysitter.
We're learning so much about that. Nearly 40% are abused by older or larger children.
Children can abuse too. That's right.
Yeah, go ahead.
People who abuse children look and act just like everybody else, you know. Like, I mean, they don't walk around in trench coats wearing, you know, a dark hat over their head and sneaking around in alleys. I mean, these people would have access to your children.
I know.
You know, these people had access to us, right? So,
I know, and they didn't have points on their head or anything. They didn't stand out in the crowd, you know.
And
they were terrible. You know, isn't that funny? Because the next line here says, "People who abuse children look and act just like everyone else." So there you go.
That's right.
That's terrible. It is. And it says those who sexually abuse children are drawn to settings where they can gain access to them, such as sports, faith centers, clubs, and schools. Like with me, that guy was standing out there looking at me at school. Right. Now, it says here for step 2, to minimize the opportunity. Well, how do you do that? It says if you eliminate or reduce one-adult/one child. In other words, one-on-one with a child, an adult.
Reduce one child, Yep.
You dramatically lower the risk of sexual abuse for children. If someone is hanging around a kid too much, and I've seen this happen, this is awful. A lot of times they show too much interest. I mean too much interest. And they'll, if someone shoos them away, they'll just go to another child and show too much interest. I mean, predators are actually the most scary people in the world. Then you say, well, how does a predator differ from a rapist or whatever? A predator is the type of person that sits down and really thinks and analyzes, and he'll groom children. You know, he'll be after a certain child, and he will groom that child. What do I mean by that? He can do that on the Internet. They have children that they actually look for they're sad-looking kids.
They're looking for the vulnerable kids. They're looking for the kids like you and me, you know, dirty, greasy hair, you know, shy kids, already, you know, not being looked after, no family support, very little family support. They're looking for the kids that are going to be easy to manipulate. You know, not the kids who are going to run and say, "Mom and Dad, look what somebody's trying to do to me." These would be kids that don't have any support, that don't have anybody looking in to see what they're doing. They aren't going to be checking on them, so they know what they're doing. They will choose their victims very carefully, and they will look for the easiest access to the most vulnerable children, who they know that they can manipulate and they can get a hold of. Very, very sad and tragic, because these children are already already set up to have severe problems from the lack of support, and then to be to be abused by a child sexual predator in any way, whether it's just exploitation, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. Absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. We've got to look out for children. We have to change this, and it has to be all of us. We all have to get involved to change this. You just can't couple people saying, "Okay, let's do this." We need everyone's voice. We need everybody to learn the signs and symptoms. Learn how to protect children. Mm-hmm. Like they said that reduce the risk, protect children. They said understand that abusers often become friendly with potential victims and their families. They'll want to hang around your family. They'll want to get involved. They'll even say, "Hey, I'll take your kids to the amusement park. I'll take your kids swimming next week." And of course, the parents might be thinking, "This guy's so cool," or "This lady's so cool," because women abuse too. I hope everybody knows this. It's not just men who sexually abuse children. There are lots of it's women too, and there's plenty of women child sexual abusers and child sexual predators out there, and you better believe it. And these people could say, "Hey, how about I'll take the kids? They get in with your family,
Yes,
and
they do.
They want access to your children, and if you fall for it, which many people do.
Sure, they do.
You're going to trust this person with your children. You don't even know this person. You know what I mean?
People need to get background checks on people too. Remember, we were talking about that once before, because when kids go to camp, when kidnapped people out there, listen to this, people out there who have children in camp. When you at the beginning of a new year for camp, you should actually ask if the counselors have had background checks done on them. A lot of times things happen at camp.
That's right, and many times the camps will actually say that they've done it, but they haven't. You can actually ask for proof. Right. You can say, "I want proof that all the that everyone out there that's an adult or that that's working with the children that's under your employment for this camp. I want proof that they have all been done background checks on every single one of them." And they actually have to come up with that proof. Otherwise, what is that telling you? Did they actually do the background checks?
No, probably not.
Right? Very important. You can't just take people's word for it. You have to be very diligent if you want to protect your children from a horrible, horrible experience that will alter their life.
That is so true, Lori. That is so true. And then it says here, to understand why children are afraid to tell. That's something that's very, very important. I know why I was afraid to tell, because I was going to end up in a home. Okay, that's the way I did. But in general, and speaking in generalities, the abuser shames the child, points out that the child let it happen, or tells the child that his or her parents will be angry. The abuser is often manipulative and may try to confuse the child about what is right and what is wrong.
You bet.
The abuser sometimes threatens a child or a family member. Some children who do not initially disclose abuse are ashamed to tell what happened to them. Children are afraid of disappointing their parents and disrupting the family. Some children are too young to understand, "Gee, was I abused or not? What was that?" And we better talk about that, too. Many abusers tell children that abuse is okay or a game. People out there have to understand that children need to learn about their body parts at a very early age.
That's right.
And they're starting to do that even younger than what I had thought would be the appropriate age appropriate, right? But children have to understand when they're at the point of reasoning, when they can, maybe 5 years old, maybe 4 years old, that their body parts, what the names of them are, because that way, if they are abused, they can say, "Well, this is what happened."
Right.
They can say, "Well, this got touched or that got touched."
Right.
And kids need to be protected that way. They just simply do.
Yeah.
And parents have to get over being embarrassed about telling them.
Yeah.
See, that's a problem too, Lori. A lot of times parents think, "Ew, I don't want to tell them about that part." No, you are protecting your child if you let them know that certain parts of their body belong to them. When I worked in detention center, one of the things that I learned, I was told to stick my arm straight out but put it palm up, okay, and then fold it. Now, every place inside of that hand is mine. That belongs to me. That's my space. All right.
Right.
No one is to enter that space. No one, unless you want them to. Okay. Now, certainly mothers, fathers, grandparents, good aunt and uncles, all this other stuff. You can hug your children too, sure, absolutely. But there's good touch, there's bad touch. We know that.
Right. I wish that my parents. I wish somebody would have told me that. You know what I mean? And also to say no. That I had the right to say no, and to go, and to run and tell somebody. You know what I mean? Because I was sexually touched by two of my brother's friends, and I was already being abused, and I was already being sexually abused. I'd already been raped and sodomized, so I didn't know that I had a right to my body. And so when these people when these young boys they weren't really that young. Let's just say maybe 19, 20, whatever. They weren't young, right? These were men. When they were asking me to do to let them do things, I didn't know that I could say no. You know what I mean?
Well, that's important too, because our bodies belong to us.
Yes.
No one has the right, whether you're a child or whether you're not a child, to touch your body unless you say it's okay.
That's exactly right. We have the right to our own bodies, and children need to know this. And children, that's the thing. I think it's so important for parents. Make sure if you're listening and you're a parent, that you do get the information. There's so many great websites like Carol was talking about, and myself, and that will show you and talk you and walk you through how to do it. You know what I mean? And age appropriately, when to start doing it. And because it's so important, because you just never know when somebody's going to come along and want to molest your child or sexually use your child. And if they don't have the information, you know what I mean? You're setting them up to a huge problem, and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and possibly death, right? So you don't want to do that.
Yes,
you want to get the information. So you're right, Carol. I mean, they need to know about their body parts. They need to know good touch, bad touch, and that my body belongs to me. There's a book out there, My Body Belongs to Me, Good Touch, Bad Touch. There's so many great resources for parents nowadays. Right.
Yeah, and they're actually in a better shape than when we were younger, because there is so much available. But it says right here, teach your children about their bodies and about what abuse is, and when age appropriate, about sex. Teach them words that help them discuss sex comfortably with you. Modeling caring for your body, and teach the children how to care for their bodies. I think when children are giving baths, because sometimes, parents can be abusers too, and then that kid really has a problem, because they have to go and find the nerve to go tell someone on their parents, and that must be very, very hard. But normally speaking, at the right age, children should bathe themselves. They don't need to, parents can stand there and guide them. And, so that they learn that, these are, my body parts. This belongs to me. It says, teach children that it is against the rules for adults to act in a sexual way with them and use examples. Teach them what parts of their bodies others should not touch. Be sure to mention that the abuser might be an adult, friend, family member, or an older person, an older youth. Teach children not to give out their email addresses, home addresses, or phone numbers while using the Internet. Oh, my God, I've seen kids do that, and I get so mad. Don't you dare. Start early to talk often, about certain things. Now, it doesn't say what age. I think everyone has to kind of, gauge that.
It depends on the child, and it depends, definitely.
Yeah, I can't say do it at the age of 4 or 5, because I don't know. Maybe the kid really isn't ready at that age. You have to, but certainly do it, and use everyday opportunities to talk about sexual abuse. This is what it says here. Use everyday opportunities to talk about sexual abuse. Be proactive. If a child seems uncomfortable or resistant to being with a particular adult, ask them why.
That's right. You don't just say, okay, kiss your uncle so-and-so, and let your aunt so-and-so hug you, when that child possibly, is just freaking out and doesn't want that touch from that particular person, or brother so-and-so, and yet the parent will force them and say, no, you have to hug them, you have to give them a kiss, and you have to wonder why that child's doing that.
Could you picture me kissing Uncle Cliff?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. I used to think of ways to poison him and how I'd get away with it. I used to do that. But it says here, stay alert. Don't expect obvious signs when a child is being sexually abused. Signs aren't always there, okay?
Yeah, that's right.
But if your kid starts acting different, all right, if your
yeah,
son is
a lot of
withdrawal,
behavioral stuff.
yeah, if he's like an outgoing kid, and then all of a sudden becomes an inward kid, what's going on? Try and find out what's going on. It doesn't mean necessarily that he was sexually abused. It might be some other kind of abuse, all right? What could be anything, all right? But,
right.
you know, start getting more on top of your kids, start becoming more alert. It says learn the signs. Physical signs of sexual abuse are not common, although redness, rashes, or swelling in their privates, that is, and urinary tract infections. You can get that a lot, okay?
Infections,
watch out, you know, or other such symptoms, right? And other such symptoms should be carefully investigated. Also, physical problems associated with anxiety, such as chronic stomach pain, which I have. I from being a child and seeing so much grief and myself going through so much grief, I have terrible stomach problems to this day and take medication for it.
Right.
Also, physical problems associated with anxiety, such as the stomach, or headaches. Maybe too many headaches. Okay.
Yeah.
Emotional or behavioral signs are more common. Now that's more common. All right. And these can run from too perfect. If a kid starts acting like too perfect, it's because they're trying to please someone, because maybe that person won't hurt me anymore if I do everything just right, and they become very jumpy and nervous. That's almost like hypervigilance, and they're looking over their head and just being too, all right, behavior. Right. Or they go to withdrawal and depression, to unexplained anger and rebellion. Sexual behavior and language that are not age appropriate, watch out, that could be a red flag. Be aware
That's right.
Be aware that in some children there are no signs whatsoever. If you find physical signs, though, that you do suspect abuse, then certainly get them help immediately.
That's right.
You know, I mean, that's what
right.
you do, and you get a hold of your centers. And I want to mention something. All right, here's one center here that is www.ncaonline.org. And then it gives you a telephone number, which I much more prefer. It says 1-800-239-9950. Now, those people can help you also to help convict a child molester, because they look for evidence. All right. Now that's called the National Child's Alliance. Now that's probably a good organization too. You know. And you know, it's not, and then there's also too, if you're not, you know, people, if you're out there and you're not sure that someone's being abused or not, for heaven's sake, don't just turn and walk away, because they say your gut is instinct. It's probably right.
That's right.
Okay.
You know, that's exactly right. You know, you something will tell you something's wrong. You know? Right. And a lot of people may think, oh no, maybe I'm overreacting. Oh, maybe it's just me thinking something's wrong. No, go with your gut instinct. You know, something it will tell you, little warning signs, little flags, little things will enter into your conscious, and you'll think, wow, I think something's wrong. You act on that. You know what I mean? But
absolutely.
They say don't do the investigation yourself. You contact the proper authorities, and you get the real, professional people in on this who can really, do the right job. They said it's better to do that than to try to investigate it yourself, and it could ruin the case for the child, and you just don't want to do that, right? So just make sure.
It says right here, act on
make
suspicion.
that call.
Make that call.
You get that child some help.
Right, and I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to say
about 15 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I can just talk some more, can't I?
That's right. We have plenty of time.
It says here,
we could go on for hours.
Not sure? I know. I'm such a nut. It says here, what if I'm not sure? Where do I go? Well, I just happen to see this now. It's 1-866-4LIGHT. All right. Now, that's the telephone number there, 1-866-4LIGHT, to be routed to resources in your community. Okay, and that's certainly, and there's another one, 1-800-4A-CHILD. That one I've heard of before. Yeah,
that's really lots of people know about that.
Yeah,
1-800-4-CHILD, child help. Yeah.
So those people can, ease your mind or say, hey, you have a point there. We're going to investigate that. We'll get the proper authorities in there, and it'll be out of your hands, and you will have been that child's hero.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
see, let's be that child's hero. Okay, don't be people that turn and walk away and just say, "Oh, let somebody else handle it," or because maybe it won't get handled, and maybe that kid will end up dead.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly.
And that's just a shame, and shame on you. You see, we as adults, we have a certain obligation. We just simply do. And,
you're right.
And our obligation on this earth is to protect, people, and if it's especially children.
That's exactly right. Our most vulnerable population.
They say children are our future.
Yeah.
What kind of children are we going to have if we don't protect them? You know what I'm saying? So there's an
look
awful
what we
lot
have
of
right
that.
now. 39 million survivors in the United States alone of child sexual abuse. I mean, my God, this is not at all good. We have to stop this, and it is going to take all of us to do it. We are going to all have to be proactive, and every single person out there, make some noise and get involved, and let's change this. Let's change this. We can. I believe this generation can get the ball rolling. I really do, and I think that enough people stand up and start really, in whatever way you can, get involved.
Right.
It will change. It will change. Be a hero.
Yeah, that's what I very much believe in, Lori, because I sure needed a hero, and you sure needed a hero. And what I just read earlier is when the kids write in school, you're sitting next to someone who's been abused, for God's sake, and no one knows her, or there's no hero for that person, just like there was no hero for you and me,
Yeah.
And we've had to find our own way. And in doing so, you make a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'll admit it. You know.
Yeah. Well,
and, well, I guess a lot of everyone makes mistakes, Lori. But kids who don't get help when they're young and have been abused, we grow up twisted. You have to. Then you have to find your way in life and find out who you are as a person. And there's all kinds of ways that people can heal. All right, my way of healing, of course, was that church group. I have to admit that was a good deal for me. I'm not saying that everyone has the same way of healing.
No, that's right. Everyone will find their own way, and needs to find their own way, to what brings them hope and what brings them peace and a self-worth and a sense of, I love myself and I did not deserve that. Whatever helps you heal. I mean, I'm a Christian and for me it was, and because I'm a Christian, it was God and it was the Lord. And, that is really what set me on my road and my path to healing. But not everybody is going to feel the same, and that's fine. Whatever brings you, whatever can bring you that peace and that comfort to know that, you were a wounded child and none of that was your fault. Not any of it was your fault. And of course, the past is the past, but yet we have to learn how to cope in the present, how to allow ourselves to have a good life, and in order to do that, we have to heal from those tragic wounds from so long ago. And effects of abuse on children, it's absolutely horrific, and we know. Any number of things, like you had, the panic attacks, low self-esteem, lack of trust in people.
I was suicidal, for God's sake. I mentioned all that stuff in my book, and you know that because you read the book, all right? Yeah. But all the things that I went through, all the feelings that I had, all those feelings of inadequacy that never left me, until I was older. Who wants to live like that? You know what I'm saying?
I know.
It's just too hard. It really is. And so at times I get very, very, very depressed. And, of course, depression is part of it, too. You go through all kinds of different feelings that you go through.
Different stages, yeah.
It's like an emotional turmoil and a roller coaster.
Yeah, that's right.
It is.
And it's, I just think it's people who have not gone through this. Thankfully, I would hope that there's so many people out there who would not know what we're talking about, because that means that they would not have been sexually abused. You know what I mean? But it's incredibly hard, and like I was saying earlier, there's a whole large section of society and a portion of society that really has no compassion and no empathy for survivors of child sexual abuse, CSA or incest or anything like that, and they really feel that it's not a big deal, and they're like, well, why is this so it's so over talked about. It's like we haven't even begun to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
That's why I love your voice. I think you're what you're doing and what you have been doing all along to try, especially for this last your adulthood, from 40 to now, and working on on becoming this person who says, I can speak about this. I can help other children. I can do something, right? And so that's what it takes. People that are willing to stand up and say, you know what, I've been there, and I care about people, and I know how many people out here who are survivors, will need help, and they will need a voice, and they will need somebody to say, this was wrong, it never should have happened, and I'm going to be out there in everybody's face until the day I leave this earth, right? And
that's the way I am too.
That's our commitment. That's our commitment, and that's what it's going to take, because there's a whole portion of society that still thinks that we should all just shut up and be silent, and nobody wants to hear about our problems because we were sexually abused as children. And
but when there's statistics that 39 million survivors.
Exactly.
What's wrong with people? So you can go right back to that, and then it says right here, break the cycle of silence, and that's what you and I are going to do.
Yeah.
You, myself, and other survivors, who have been there, the thing to do is to get up and really start talking more. Because you know what? I read one place, and I ended up on actually making a comment on a TV night show. They said that sexual abuse had gone down a little bit, but that's not true. That's not true at all, because, and that was disputed. It didn't take long to do that, trust me.
Right, yeah.
And I wrote in quite an article. But, the point is this. It's happening, and people have got to wake up and say it's time to stop this, or at least try to stop it. You have to. Because otherwise we're just going to have another broken generation of people.
No, that's right. That's right. And like you were talking, I know you had mentioned before that, part of your belief is that we really, or a huge part of your belief probably is that we need to reach the kids, and it needs to start in the schools. And I know a lot of people are talking about this. A lot of people. I'm so happy to hear this, because there's been quite a few people talking about especially this last couple of years. And I know that some schools do have programs and stuff in place, but not every school.
No,
so what about the schools that don't? What about those children? What are their chances?
They have to learn on their own, and a lot of times they learn the hard way.
Yeah, and
they just simply do.
Children are being abused sexually. We see the headlines out here. We know what's happening to children, right? And so we know that this is not going away, and that every day there's more and more and more children sexually abused in some way, right? And so for people to say that this is going away, it's not.
No, it's not.
If anything, it's getting worse.
It's getting worse, Lori. It's getting worse. And, part of it is our justice system, too. Okay, again, I'm going to go back. You have Tier 1, 2, and 3, okay? The Tier 3 people, well, they are considered the most dangerous, okay? Tier 2, they're somewhere in the middle. And, you don't want to trust them, trust me, okay?
No.
Tier 1 people, they have more, they're going to walk, they're going to get out of jail, and if they go to jail, that's if they even get convicted of anything. A lot of times they get probation, and I just get so mad because we don't know how many victims they've had. This is ridiculous. This is not right. Sex abuse is sex abuse, and when you abuse a child, you ruin that child's life. That's what you do. Yep. You take that child's childhood away, and by God, you should suffer for it.
That's right.
You should suffer for it. And then they talk about recidivism. I'll get into this really quick. Well, how many people are those that are going to reoffend? They have found through a lot of study, and they're not always 100% accurate. They're doing the best that they can with this. But the Tier 1s, the lesser of the abusers, are less likely, with help and a prison time of some sort, to go out and do the crime again. But what they will do is maybe they'll become a thief, or they'll some other act of violence.
Another criminal act,
Right. And so we have a problem. And then there'll be those people out there say, but think about all those people that go to jail, how much money it costs to keep them in jail. Again, I'm going to bring this back forth really quick and make it strong. Our people who are being sexually abused and who are treated so violently, we end up in the hospitals, we end up in psychiatrist offices, we end up psychologist offices. Well, that costs money too.
Yeah.
All right. And if you want to start weighing sides, in fact, I read one article not too long ago where they said it's pretty darn even. In fact, it's getting a little heavier on the side where that people who do abuse, continue to abuse, and there isn't really that much, people that can be helped.
Right. I've seen that too.
And I believe that, and the money should be spent for those who have been hurt, who have been abused, and no questions asked. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't have to be abused.
Yeah, that's exactly right. See, this is the thing. We're catering. The way that this whole system is set up is that all the people that committed the crimes and were found guilty and actually charged and found guilty and are doing time are taking away from the resources and the money that could be going to help the victims and these children and these adolescents and these youth and these adults, who need help from what these sick individuals did.
I know.
And so, this is all wrong, and this is always the way it's been. The victim is always the one who is not looked upon. It's just kind of shoved away, and all the attention focuses on the criminal or the person who perpetrated the crime. And why have we not figured this out? And there's been people screaming about this for about 20 years. And why is this still going on?
I don't know.
Questions
I honestly don't know.
Boggle my mind. You know what I mean?
If you do the crime, you do the time.
Yeah, that's
right. It's as simple as that. That's a silly little statement, but it's so true. You do the crime, you do the time. And another thing I found out too, which blows my mind too, Lori, is the fact that a lot of times, if a person is convicted, if they are sentenced to some jail time, they get out long before the sentence is even over.
Oh yeah, well for sure.
What
early
kind of
release.
Thing is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's just it. We see so many cases out here of people, and not every person who was ever convicted of and found guilty of child sexual abuse or anything like that, will not every single one of them will go back out and reoffend. But the issue is that there are those that do, and we see this in the headlines. That this person, who was a child sexual predator, did their time, got out, and then reoffended. Do we really want to put our children at risk? I mean,
no.
Where's the protection for children? This is
That's
the issue. Where is it? Where was my protection? Where was your protection? And that was a long time ago. And you think about all the children since me and you, right? And there's a little bit of an age difference between me and you. And you think about all these children in the meantime. Where's their protection?
There's none.
Oh, I know, and it's literally up to society.
It's just not right. It's just not right. It's not right, Lori. And like you said earlier, we're supposed to shove all of this stuff under the rug and say, okay, okie dokie. I have that in my book. Okie dokie.
Right.
No. Okay. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. It's not okay, and you can't shove it under the rug because it hurts you. Yeah.
That's right.
You
can be in denial all you want, but the fact is the truth and the reality of it is the damage was done.
I know.
And people have to deal with this for the rest of their lives. So, reporting, make sure, we have about 3 minutes left, if you're listening to this, make sure that you do, report. Do you suspect abuse or of abuse? You report it. There's a listener. We're just trying to reach out to people to say you've got to do the right thing by children, right?
Yes.
And so many times people think, well, I don't want to break up a happy family. What if I'm wrong? And what if I cause problems for that family and then the family breaks apart? Abused children are not happy. Let me tell you that.
No.
Abused children of any type of abuse, I don't care what it is, they are not happy. Neglected children are not happy.
No, they just simply are not. And don't be afraid. Be more ashamed if you don't report this, because that child. There are organizations out there. I gave the number earlier. That will help you define whether it's child abuse, and if they think it is, they will go in there and they don't have to name you as a person. That can be anonymous. Okay, it can be. Remember that, and they'll take care of business. All right, and that's what we need to do. We need for people to go in and scoop these kids up and save their lives. Be their hero. We need more heroes in this world. All right, that's what we need.
You're so right. You're so right, Carol. Well, you're one of my heroes.
Well, you're one of mine too. It's mutual.
I tell you, if I lived closer to you, we'd probably be having coffee.
Yeah, we absolutely would. We're so much alike. It's really funny. But I have to go all the way over to Canada. Oh my God!
I have to go all the way to the East Coast of USA.
That's terrible.
Hey, someday we may well. But yeah, I'm so glad that you could come on. Thanks for doing this. It was an honor, and it was just fun, and it was exciting. I love talking to you. What we were talking about is not fun. I just like talking to you. That was fun. But talking about this stuff, people, this is so important. Do not shove this under the carpet.
No more.
Do not. We're no longer going to be silent, right? And there's a whole movement right now, Silent No More. Kate Swift in the UK. I mean, we've got people talking out here, and we will not be silenced. We will not be silenced. This will not be shoved under the carpet anymore. And so start talking about it, start learning about it, and start protecting children, and especially your own, right? Make sure, this is so important. And we're not going to go away. We're going to be here for a very, very long time talking about this. So, get on board. Get on board with whoever you feel comfortable with, but do something.
And to those kids, let me just say something out there really quick. To those kids out there, if you're being abused in your own home and you don't feel comfortable speaking to any family member, find someone who you do feel comfortable with and get help.
That's right. That's exactly right.
You deserve a good life. And do not let anyone take that away from you. Get help.
That's right. That's exactly right. You tell someone that you feel that you can trust, or you tell a couple people you feel you can trust. You make sure you tell somebody, and you get that help. You get the help that you need, because this is your right. You have rights. We have rights. Children have rights. And we have to uphold it. Now, we as adults have to uphold these children's rights. But you, if you're a young person and you're listening to this, you have rights, and you have right to an abuse-free life.
Right.
So you have the right to get help, and you have the right to tell someone, and so and to get help, right? So make sure that you do. But thanks a lot, Carol.
Well, you're quite welcome. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I just hope that we reached a lot of people.
Me too. I think that we will, and I appreciate everybody who's tuning into the show. I know that I have a lot of people who listen to the archives, and I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. Panic Child, that's the name of your book, and it's available. Where can people pick your book up? They can pick it up at Author House.
Well, the Amazon.com, you can order from that. And you can also order from Barnes & Noble, and it's available there on demand. You go and you order it. And so it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Yes, it's there.
That's awesome. So, there you go, Panic Child, Carol D. Levine. And, it's a great book. It's an awesome story. And I'm so glad that you lived to write to tell your story.
I'm glad I'm here too.
Me too.
At one time I wouldn't have been, but today I'm real happy.
I hear you. That's me too. And I think that's why we have so much in common. And so many of us do. So that's the whole thing. It's the common thread, and we do need to help each other out. And thanks so much for being here tonight, Carol. And I wish you a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope. And you're more than welcome on my show anytime. And
that's good to know. This is something that we just can't talk about too much.
No, you're right. We just can't stop talking about it. You're right. Yeah. We need more and more and more people talking about it, more voices, more people, right? So, you're absolutely right. Okay. Thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it.
Listen to me. I'm having trouble hearing you. I think it's the heat. It's melting everything, including me. I will call you back, okay?
That's great. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.